Mr. Caldwell. I don't want to read his detailed bio because it is included in your journals that you received at the registration desk, but I will mention that Mr. Caldwell is the chairman and CEO of Caldwell Financial, and I had the opportunity of meeting him in March, and he told great stories about his experiences with the financial world, but also some of his experiences which he'll share about Macedonia. So without further ado, I'd like to call up Mr. Caldwell to speak on, the world financial crisis, how did we get there, and where to from here, a broad view. Thank you.
It sounds like a very serious topic. Let me assure you, it's not going to be that serious. I was thinking about the word diaspora. I'm part of the Irish diaspora, and we've been bent on taking over the world ever since that time, but you Macedonians may give us a run for the money. I'm going to, I don't want this to be a total monologue, so I'm going to invite questions, or you can ask questions after I've finished, when I've done my 3-hour presentation. I'm going to give you, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite because I've never been to Macedonia, but I know I've had 3 distinct impressions about Macedonians. Let me give you the first. The first was, this is a very proud people. And I mean that in the positive sense, a prideful people. And I'll give you my experience. I grew up in the west end of Toronto on Windermere Avenue, and it was a great street, terrific street, with lots of kids. And my friend Peter Foster, I didn't know he was a Macedonian. I didn't know what a Macedonian was, but he was a Macedonian. Anyway, one night, I don't know whether we were 12 or 13 or 14, but we were doing something very foolish. I don't even remember what, but they arrested us all. The police came and they rounded up, there were about 6 of us, and they took us to the Keele Street police station, and they were giving us a really tough Dutch uncle talk about being idiots. And I don't know how it happened, but one of the policemen walked by my friend Pete Foster, who was standing next to me, and for some reason, I don't know why, he said, "Are you a Greek?" And Peter went crazy. He says, "I am a Macedonian," and he starts yelling at the policeman, and I'm trying to say to Peter, you know, there's a certain decorum that's expected when we're arrested. You know, let's apologize and get out of here as quickly as we can. And he's going on about being a Macedonian. So I remember that stuck in my mind, that this is a pretty prideful bunch, you know, and they're pretty serious about that. So that was my very first impression. Pride, in the good sense. My second is persistence. Persistence and effort, and that can be typified by one of my partners, Liz Namovsky. Actually, I got to say business partners these days, excuse me. One of my not that there's anything wrong with that. But Liz, I can get in trouble before I even go a few minutes, but I have been a professional trader, money manager for well over 45 years. And I have never been associated with a harder working, persistent, positive, upbeat individual who just puts in the hours and doesn't count the time. Anybody like Liz Namovsky. And that says so much. And if all the daughters of your country are like her, you will take over the world, let me tell you. Pride and persistence. The other is professionalism. I'm going to give you an acronym, you don't even know it. It's called ISAF. Have you ever heard of ISAF? Anybody know what ISAF is? You know, ISAF is the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan. Okay, and I had the privilege of being in a government mission to Afghanistan in October, and it was an incredible opportunity to see the professionalism and the caliber of our Canadian troops there. But I was at ISAF headquarters in Kabul. We went from Kabul to Kandahar and then some forward operating bases, and we spent about 10 days in the theater. But ISAF headquarters, and Kabul to me was one of the scariest places on earth, because it's different when you're in Kandahar. You're with troops, and there's everywhere with guns and tanks and all kinds of stuff around. Nobody's going to get at you. We did get in one small gunfight, but it wasn't serious. I don't think it was personal. But at any rate, at the military headquarters, ISAF, this is where General McChrystal, and we met all these people. The people who guard that are Macedonians. And you should be so proud of those young people, because that's the dangerous stuff. Because you don't know if that van coming up toward you has 1,000 pounds of TNT or dynamite or gelignite in it. And so you don't know. You've got to be nice to people there, and you're looking in, and the second later it can be over for you. So that, and as I say, it was the randomness of Kabul that really grates at you. But you should be so proud of the professionalism of those young men in serving your country and doing your country proud, because everybody went by and said, those are the Macedonians. And that's an amazing thing. Now that's their task in a scary place, and if you could, I don't know what you can do about it, or you can write them a letter and encourage them, but very proud of those people. My job is to talk about how did we get here and where to from here. And what I'm going to do is sort of talk about the topic and then give you some insight into our thoughts and our actions then and now. And maybe there might be some lessons for Macedonia. Now, I'm going to do it fairly superficial because it's a very complex and big topic. There's a couple of good books like The Great Short or Too Big to Fail. You know, if you really can't sleep at night, get one of those and it really will deal. And they're actually kind of interesting. But what we had happen a couple of years ago was the convergence of all kinds of failings, human failings, government failings, corporate failings, all meeting at one point in time. I'm going to deal with the one part of it, what's called the subprime. What happened, there was the mantra in America that everyone should own their own house. That's a very noble thing, but so many good intentions get perverted. So there was tremendous pressure put on banks all through America to make loans to people who actually couldn't pay them. They were called subprime. And so, and the pressure was immense, it was universal. And then, of course, what happens, all these loans are effectively garbage loans, if you will. But what happened, the guys in our business, I mean, we're known for our greed. We take all these little bits of garbage loans made at about 7%, and we put them in a garbage bag. And somehow they were transubstantiated to AAA. So all of a sudden, a bunch of bits of garbage being diversified in one garbage bag became AAA credit. Now do keep in mind, there are about 14 to 18, thereabouts, AAA corporations on the face of the earth. 64,000 garbage bags ranked AAA. So everybody started trading bits of the garbage bags all over the world. Banks were buying them because once they became AAA, you bought these loans at 7%, and now you were selling AAA garbage bags, or pieces of it, at 3.5%. That's a markup of 100% on those mortgages you bought, which we could pay tremendous bonuses to us in the securities business. Entitlement is the dominant word in it's the dominant word in the world nowadays. So everything was going on kind of smoothly, but all of a sudden the housing market starts to go south. And somebody says, wait a second, what do I actually own for this piece of garbage bag? Nobody knew what everybody owned. And all of a sudden, it was like the emperor has no clothes. Nobody had any confidence anymore. The banks wouldn't lend money to each other. The whole system froze. There was no capital. There was a freeze on capital availability. In the meantime, housing prices are powering down. Because remember, in America, you can buy a house with no money down, you know, hardly any mortgage. And if you don't like your mortgage, if the house goes down, you just walk away. You know, there's no recourse. I don't know why anybody didn't own 5 houses. You know, there was no downside.